also, you know, they say like LA is like little Canada. It's like all our creators go there, move there. And like, I truly believe that like the Canadian comedy scene is like, it's like the best scene in the world.
Does your last name get like butchered a lot? Yeah, like butchered a lot.
Yes. Like, it's funny that you say butcher because my dad was a butcher in Italy. But my last name means a small battalion of soldiers.
That's unreal.
Yeah. And like battalion, right? You know that word? So like Battaglini is like a small battalion of soldiers. And like truly my father's side is quite a warring bunch.
What part of the boot you from?
Abruzzo.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, just underneath Rome.
Okay, nice. I'm half Calabrese, half Sicilian.
Oh my God, that's amazing. Sicily is like my favorite place. Like, I don't know if it's Rome and then Sicily. I mean, I haven't been everywhere in Italy, but Sicily I love so much.
Yeah, Sicily, that's the one that gets the most attention. But I tell people that. I'm like, I'm half Calabrese, half Sicilian, so that just makes me a child of divorce right off the bat.
Oh, okay. That's great.
Then, Sicilian is always the one that people like want to get to know about. But Sicilians, I don't know, we're cheeky bastards, man.
Yeah, it's another word. It's another.
It feels like it's not even part of Italy. It's just like we're its own thing.
Yeah, like when I went, so I don't remember when this was, but maybe it was in 2008. Anyways, we were invited to go to a wedding in Sicily. They're longtime family friends, and then this couple breaks up. We still decide to go to visit. And then we flew from Rome to
So they didn't
Palermo.
even make it to the wedding? Like,
No.
there's a wedding plan, and they're just, they're like, I don't think we're going to do
She ends
it.
up going back to an old boyfriend, and the family was it was such a disaster.
Sounds like a Hallmark movie.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
But like we fly from Rome to Palermo, and there you get like, in one of these little, vans that drives you up to the tarmac, right?
Yeah.
And all of a sudden we're not going on the plane. There's a delay. And then all of a sudden a van, like a police truck comes in with the sirens, and then out comes like some guy literally shackled to like the cops. They bring him up onto the plane in front of everybody. Obviously mafios,
Yeah.
And then they sit in the back of the plane, and like one of the guys is like, with a newspaper, like as if he's blocking, this guy. And I'm like, you just showed us. And then I was literally on that plane. I'm like, oh my God, we're going to die. My father's going to kill me. What am I doing on this plane? Like, yeah, Sicily was a trip. It's pretty wild.
Yeah, it's like, because you have people like that like we hold grudges, man. And it's like either like to the level of like gangster, we're going to kill you style, or as light as just like, I'm going to hold this grudge and be super passive aggressive to you for the next 27 years. And that's like best case scenario too.
Like Italians are generally like this. Like in my family, like, oh my God, the grudges they hold. But yeah, Sicilians, somehow it's another level.
Yeah, I know people that still haven't talked to each other. And
my dad's
over
family.
like, I don't even think they remember like what they started everything.
My father's family, like he doesn't even, I mean, most of them are passed on, but like he doesn't even talk to the ones that are alive. He talks to one of them, and then his brother that we lived beside in Sudbury forever. They stopped talking when I was little, and they still haven't made up. And my dad's 92.
I wanted to ask this later on, but we're just on the topic.
Yeah, whatever.
I want to know like if your family does this, but whenever there's a big family event, usually on my Sicilian side, like let's say it's a wedding or something, we all after the event go into our own separate like conglomerates, like our own separate families, and then everyone just talks shit about each other after the event. Is that a thing that happens for you guys, or is that just us?
Well, I mean, yes and yes. Like it's certain. I mean, I remember one wedding specifically. It was like this part of the family, it all broke down, and we ended up like we were just so taken aback by what had happened at the wedding that we're like, oh my God. And we just ended up talking for hours.
What happened?
And then, oh my God, I don't know if I can. It was just, I mean, I can try to be general. I can be general, but it was like.
No, be specific.
Use names.
I just wouldn't want to.
I want to know what it smelled like at this place.
Well, I mean, they're not even together anymore, so maybe it's okay. But like, this wedding was like so much money they spent, and it was just so ridiculous. And it was basically like, the bride, who was my cousin, it was like they were so with the groom's side of the family that we didn't matter. And she was just really not nice to the wedding line. It was just, I don't know, so much shit. It was so much shit. Like, and then we were just like, how could you just like disregard us? We've been close forever. You know what I mean? And then it literally was a break in our relationship. And then we became close with these other cousins that we had sort of not been as, like, we're not as closely related as we were with the bride. Yeah. Like, you know, but then we became really close with them and still to this day.
Yeah. No, it works out like that. So it's wild. So
it was a mess of a fucking wedding. It was a mess. It was it was ridiculous.
She would show more love to the other side of the thing.
And now they're not together anymore. They're not together anymore.
Now she has no one. Serves her right?
Yeah, huh? I think she doesn't have anyone.
She deserves that, right?
I don't think she deserves it, but that's what happened. I mean, deserve is like, you know, you know, that's a.
Why are you smiling while you say that?
No, but just that, like, you know, we all living through a karma. You know what I mean? This guy, my dad used to call him Peacock because he was like he had no hair here and lots of hair here. So to my dad, he looked like a peacock.
I thought it was like he liked to show off or something, but no, he just had a gnarly.
No, he talked like this. He talked like this. That's how he talked. It was fucked up. So yeah,
sounds like
that
an extra
wedding,
in a mob movie.
That wedding was like that for that wedding was like definitely. I remember staying up till I don't know what time in the morning. Just talking, like, we just couldn't get over what had happened. But
dude, that's my favorite part though. Like, the events are fun because you see everyone, because you don't really get to see each other that much anymore. But afterwards, you go to someone's house and you're there till like 4 a.m. just talking shit, dude.
My dad's family is so dramatic. Like, you can't even, like, there's a story where the two of his sisters, like, they got on their knees, like, yelling with the other family, you know, with the family, like they were having a fight, and then they were like, we're gonna walk up the mountain ourselves, we don't need a ride. You know what I mean? These two bitches just going up the fucking Italian mountains.
The hard-headed man.
Oh yeah, and Abruzzese, we're known to be the hard-headed. So I read an article, I think it's the National Geographic years ago, which I'm still trying to find this article to this day, but
if you know, send it this way.
So they were talking about this festival. It's a snake festival. Okay, it's like a festival of a snake in where my family's from, and they were just talking about how that at the time of when the Romans took the empire, that it was our ancient tribe of Abruzzo that was, everyone was like, these guys are going to take it because they're the fiercest soldiers, which. Small battalion, you know what I mean?
Okay.
So, and then the Romans took it to like a surprise to everyone. I guess the Romans were more organized or whatever, but like very, very worrying. They can be very worrying, but you know.
So it was a festival for snakes.
Yeah, and I can't remember the name. It's called Cucullo. The town is called Cucullo, and I don't remember the name of the town, but they were highlighting this festival in the article to say, like, there's this festival in Cucullo that like celebrates the snake, and you know, there's snakes, like, you know, there are people that are handling the snakes, and it's a really,
whole thing.
Yeah, and then they were just talking about like how, you know, that area of Italy was these people were supposed to be supposed to take the empire, and then they didn't. You know, Rome came in and said,
have you tried just searching up National Geographic article
oh my god, I'm a researcher.
Cucullo Snake Festival.
I've tried everything. I'm an actual researcher.
You just described that perfectly. Like I feel like I could just, once you're done here,
the Carlton Library and
please do, because I've tried. I'm an actual, like, that's my background. I'm a researcher. Like, before I became a comedian, like, I have a master's in history. So, and then I was paid to be a researcher for years, and I cannot find this goddamn article. Like,
damn.
I need to, like, I probably just need to go pay and you know, and use like a really sophisticated database, or go to the National Geographic, or maybe now I could find it. I don't know. It was just like, I remember reading this article, and then I cannot find the goddamn article. And then, you know, sometimes that's like that, right? You're on the internet and you're like, I remember reading this, but where is it?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it was just a figment of your imagination. It doesn't even
or
exist.
They just scrub it. You know, they scrub so many things now.
Yeah.
I don't know why they would scrub this, but like, or whatever, you know, I just... Yeah,
didn't want us getting any ideas, having any snake festivals of our own.
Exactly.
I love that though. That's so like Italian or European. Just to like, they just used to make shit out of nothing. Like, let's make a whole festival revolved around a snake. We don't do anything anymore like that.
Dude.
We're just lame-o.
Yeah, we're just, you know, we'll make a holiday based
back
off
home.
Of like,
back home, we have like. There's a town that has Scallop days, and it's all about like they're like Digby, so like they're known for their world famous scallops. And they just,
everyone knows Digby known for their world famous scallops.
It's true, bro. Nova Scotia. I'm from Nova Scotia originally, so like we have dumb.
She heard how you said scallops, and she's like, "Who the fuck?"
I was like, "Where's the family?" Yeah, and then I was like, "Where?" Like Scotland, Ireland.
Yeah, we have dumb little traditions and holidays and all the little, because the towns have nothing. There's one town where I'm from. It's called. There's a festival there. there called Steer Barbecue, and they just barbecue a whole like cow, and then everyone just comes and eats a bit of it. It's awesome.
Like, those are all just like ancient
Yeah.
practices to get people together. Like if someone goes hunting, you're gonna call everybody in and be like, "Yo, let's have this cow."
Yeah.
And then it's a holiday a century later, you know?
Yeah,
That's how they do
or
it.
1,000 years later, it's
Yeah.
still, I mean, I know that Nova Scotia's not 1,000, or like the people that came there, that are celebrating this. It's not 1,000 years old, but anyways,
facts. You guys got us beat there. Y'all are old. You guys got so much
Italy?
history. Yeah, you guys got so much history. It's so dope.
Well, so does Canada have a lot of history. It's just like
doesn't
we've disregarded it.
Isn't Italy still like a fairly young country though when it comes to like, because they didn't
1863.
actually, they didn't unite until 1863 or something like that. Yeah, but like there's obviously a whole history before then. I know some stuff.
Yeah,
you guys are only 4 years older than Canada then.
technically, yeah.
So what? Like you were a history major?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yep.
Why that? Like what was?
Well, like when I was, when I graduated high school, I was like, what am I going to do? And I remember talking to this, girl I knew who'd gone to university, and then she was like, yeah, I'm a poli-sci history major. And I was always interested in that stuff. So that was my undergrad. And then in fourth year, well, then it was like, okay, what am I going to do after this? And I applied for my master's, but I'd applied to come to Toronto to go to Toronto to do like a public relations degree.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't get accepted, and I was devastated. But I got accepted to do my master's, and I was like, in Sudbury, like at Laurentian. But it was the best thing that ever happened. It was amazing. And so, that's how it went.
So now you're doing like just professionally stand-up comedy as well. Like, what do you have to say about like, actual like getting post-secondary education as to like just working in comedy?
I mean, I don't think I would be talking about the things that I do if I didn't have that background.
Mm-hmm.
It's like your path is your path. I don't regret any of it. It's like now finally, like I'm actually working on a screenplay based on my master's thesis, which I'd been wanting to do forever. And so now I'm like doing that, and it's like it's so amazing, it's so fantastic.
You're getting real like intelligent laughs in the crowd. Like, is there some history buffs out here? They get what I'm saying, or is it just?
Sometimes sure. If I'm talking about that stuff, absolutely, yeah.
Do you find like, because I know a lot of Italian comedians, they lean heavily into like the Italian material. Do you find like just like kind of telling your story is like the best way to like be as a comedian, or is it kind of like, people just kind of beat it till it's just dry? You know what I mean? Or
yeah, like I never liked it when I first started doing comedy. Like I never, first of all, like when I first started comedy, it was not like I did stand up at first, and
started doing like sketches and stuff.
Well, yes, I was doing character stuff, and then I tried stand up, but I was like, I don't know how to write stand up. I did a set, and I'm like, I can't repeat this set. Is what I thought.
You thought you had to write new jokes every time?
Yeah. I was like, this is gonna bore me, and I got into comedy because I'd taken classes at Second City. You know Second City?
No.
So Second City is like a sketch comedy theater, and which started in Chicago in the 50s, and then SCTV. Do you know like Eugene Levy, Andrea Martin?
Okay,
that cast that was like Second City TV. So Second City is an improv theater, improv sketch theater that has like a training center. And like the Toronto one is legendary because it was John, that legendary cast of like Eugene Levy, John Candy, Andrea Martin, Gilda Radner, a couple more people. And so they had a training center, and I was working for, because after I did my master's, I get into Humber College to do like a marketing diploma degree. And then I ended up working for these consultants, these branding consultants, because I worked in marketing for a couple of years. And the woman I worked for wanted to take us to Second City. And I did a little bit of theater in university, but I had no aspiration. I was like, oh, this is fun. And when I moved to Toronto, I was like, I'd like to do some theater. So we went to see a show, and I was like, this is amazing. Then she had said that, they have a training center, where they teach improv for people who want to get like business people to be more agile in business.
Okay. Be more animated in meetings and stuff. Okay.
How to think on your feet.
Yeah. And then I took it, and I was like, this is fun. And then a year later, like once you take all the classes consecutively, you do a class show. This was like in 2001, and or the end of 2000 rather. And then when I stepped on stage, I'm like, oh, this is it. Like, this is what I've been looking for.
That's awesome.
And
so you were like rehearsing for a year, and then finally.
No, you're taking classes for a year, and then you go and do an improv show.
Damn.
So like each class you learn different parts of building a scene, an improv scene, and creating character, coming in with certain intentions. Like, it was all improvisation, right? And then after that year, me and a couple of people from my class, we started a monthly cabaret, really. And then I would just once a month like create a new character and do monologues.
So you had that moment where you're like, oh, this is it when you're on stage.
Oh, yeah.
What was next step for you? Just like, I need to do this every night?
Yeah, how were you getting your fix after that?
Well, I just kept like exactly that. I just kept taking the next level, which is called, at the time it was called conservatory. I don't know what it's called now. And then I take those weekly classes, and then I just, started to perform, more and more. And then I tried stand up in 2001. And then I got really interested in clown. So I'm also a clown.
So you're a stand-up comedian and a clown at the same time.
Well, I really got into stand-up like in 2004, 2005. But I'd done like a solo show before I even, really got into stand-up. So like I would go, I would do this show monthly that I produced with these two people. And then, got to know the community and, started doing other shows because that's how it works, right? People see you, they like book you in other shows. And then the first time I saw clown, because Toronto's a real center for clown in the world. And I saw clown for the first time. I know I don't know what you might think of clown, but it's not. It's like very cabaret style, And when I saw it, I was like, it just got in my throat. And I was like, I got to do this. And then when I actually studied clown, and the big thing that I was left with, I think it was 2002 or 3, I studied clown. But because it was a 5-week, it's intensive, it was like quite a bit of money. Then I was like, oh man, I really got to figure stand-up out. That was like one of the big things that I was left with. But I also started to do clown around town because there was a lot of cabarets, a lot of circus stuff that was starting to happen, that was happening. So there were places to go, do clown.
What is clown? I'm sorry. Like you've said it so many times now. I feel like the word's lost all meaning, but I don't know.
Clown is like an ancient. It's it's an ancient tradition in many cultures, and so, like clown. There's
you used to do clown. What does that mean?
I mean, I still do clown. Like I go and perform as a clown, and I would do like a turn or a piece. I'd perform as a clown.
Okay.
So like I would just. Write something and perform it like a stand-up would.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's a noun and a verb. Like clown. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Were you?
I'm following. I'm following. I got it.
Because okay, cool.
You know, like in popular culture, clown is like, oh, I'm a scary clown. But when you look at certain performers, certain comedians,
right?
You're like, oh, you're like, that's a clown. Like my favorite comedians are clowns. Like they might not even realize it, but some of the best like performers to me, comedians are clowns. So clown is like, it's an ancient tradition, and in and there's like the Canadian clown, as it's otherwise known, or pachinko clown, which is created by a guy named Richard Pachinko. It's like a mix of like North American, Indian, and European clowning techniques. So they say that Canadian clowns have heart and European clowns have technique. So France is very much like, France is a big tradition of clown.
Okay. This reminds me of an episode of Modern Family.
Yeah,
Like the big guy, he's a clown and like he's got passion in America, but then he goes to France to be a clown over there, and they got techniques and yeah.
But
it's
this
based
is true.
around this. This is hilarious.
Have you ever watched Baskets?
No, I've heard of that show.
Oh, it's so amazing. Yeah. It's honestly like at first I was like, Zach or Galifianakis. Are you a clown? Like at first I was like, are you guys making fun of this? But then it just was just such a great like show. It was beautiful. But
I'm trying to, because you said some of your favorite comedians are clowns. They may not even know it. So what makes a clown then?
Yeah. What do you mean?
Like if you think of like who would you see as a clown? Like
my mind kind of goes
like
to
someone's like Kramer, Kramer on Seinfeld. Okay. That is a clown.
I was thinking of like Eric Andre. Like I don't know if you're familiar with him. He's just like a very shock comic. Like he's very like out there, but it's kind of
Jim Carrey.
Oh, Jim Carrey, a clown. Okay.
100%.
Okay.
100%.
I see.
And then when you look at like one of the most famous clowns in Italy is Totò. I don't know if you ever heard of him, but like everybody in Italy knows him, Antonio De Curtis. So he's like, that's like, he's one of the most famous clowns in the world, but from there, but here, like the Laurel and Hardy, you know what I mean? Like these acts that are very like, some of it's very slapstick based. There's American, there's all kinds of clown schools and clown traditions, but people come to study clown from all over the world in Toronto. So in Pachinko clown specifically, so what they do is indigenous people believe there are 6 directions to the self. Right. North, south, east, west, above, below. And that when you look at yourself from all 6 directions, you're meant to laugh at the sheer ridiculousness of yourself. Okay. So you kind of through the training, you go through all these sides of yourself. And then you're led through these exercises where you create character, and it's based in like a physicality and an emotion. And then you come with the character. So, if you look at European clowns, it's very technical, their body, it's a lot of technical stuff. I mean, a very famous clown is Sacha Baron Cohen or Sacha Cohen, right? He studied with Philippe Gaulier, and Gaulier is a master in France, right? So he's a clown master, and he's come here many times to teach. That's he teaches more the anti-clown, or Bufon, it's called. I've also studied that, and that's the grotesque part of clown. So the clown is the mirror to the world. And the Bufon shows the world the hypocrisy.
Huh.
So what?
There's so many levels.
Man,
to
this
it goes on.
Is this not this is sick. I'm having a great time learning about this.
You guys know Jason
I didn't know
Rouse?
I didn't know it went this deep.
No, me neither.
I've
never even really had my mind unlocked to thinking about it like this.
Why would you? And do you guys know Jason Rouse?
No.
He's a Canadian comedian. He lives in the States now. He's a stand-up, and he's the closest thing to he's Bufon. You watch him. I remember watching him for the first time, and I was I couldn't even believe it. He, as a stand-up, it's he's the Bufon because he's so grotesque, but it's the satire. It's satire. Buffon's satire.
Yeah. Is Bufon a nice way of saying buffoon?
Yeah.
No.
No? Okay.
It's Bufon. Some people say buffoon, but Bufon is
okay.
I mean, some people call it buffoon, but it shouldn't be.
Okay.
But maybe that's the English way of saying Bufon. But Bufon is a tradition, and so that was, oh my God. So there used to be a cabaret in Toronto called Lunacy Cabaret. Okay, started in 2004, and it was legendary. It had a cult following. So it was circus people and then clowns, and these circus people were people juggling chainsaws. Okay, people doing fire.
I love that shit.
Sweet.
Oh, it was wild.
I love that shit.
Wild. And the scene was insane. I remember going here and I was this is so I did this. I was in that world from, 2004 till about 2008, 2009. And then I got to the point where I was it's always you always have these turning points in comedy, or crossroads rather. It was me and a lot of my friends who are clowns, who I still work with today, and some of them are stand-ups. We would go do this Lunacy Cabaret, and, they were charging, I don't know, at the time, maybe $10. Then it became $20 at the door, 300 people. We never got paid. We would pay we'd spend $100 a show to put on these crazy performances.
Mm-hmm. And you guys are paying just to be a part of it.
Yeah, because we're creating art, right?
Yeah.
And then we're okay, I'm not doing this anymore. The guys, you guys are making money off us. And then that's when in 2008, then I got on the roster at Yucks. And then I would do clown, I would still do it, and I would still do the cabaret sometimes, but it was just kind of whoa, I'm not gonna unless you're paying me money.
Yeah.
I don't want to get dressed up you lug this shit around the city. It's fucked up.
You're honking every step. Yeah, I know it's
fucked up.
Took this shit on the train? What do you mean?
Oh my God, I took a clown. I took I did some clown in LA, and it was that was messed up. It was that was crazy.
What? Why? Just because the way they treated it, or just?
It was this festival that was really poor. If you talk to any comedian who did this festival, I think it was the Los Angeles Sketch Comedy. I don't know. And this woman was come and do your solo show. And it was the worst. I was what am I doing? I pack up my clown shit. It was not they didn't. I don't know. It just wasn't set up proper.
Yeah.
And I just remember people looking what the hell is going on? And I was yo, man. And there were other Canadians that went and they just did stand up. And I'm I wish I would have just done stand up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Instead of doing a solo show.
Can you?
Yeah, but
sorry. I didn't mean to cut you
no.
off. Can you tell us about any of the characters you created and like how you came up with them?
Okay, so like the first
Give us like a top 3.
Yeah, so I had a character named Nary Flyme, and she was a widow, and like one of the first turns I did, I would just come out and like to is it Ella Fitzgerald? Like, isn't it romantic, right? And I would ask somebody to dance, right? And then they would come up, and then as we're dancing, my dress would come off, and then I'd have like old Italian underwear on and old bra, and I'd have cookies stuffed in my underwear, and then I would just eat cookies, and they would eat cookies, and that was it.
That was the character. How'd you come up with that?
And that one was after my grandmother.
What drug inspired that one?
I don't know how the widow came. Like it was in clown, like doing when I was taking clown, like, and then this widow character developed, and then I end up getting, like, in the course of my whatever acting career, comedy career, like I've been cast 9 times as an Italian widow. It's really.
Did you feel you got typecasted there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. It was a widow.
Yeah.
But when I look back too, it's like when I was a young girl, and like I'd go to Italian weddings, and like, old Italian guys would come, like, Paisani would be like, "Hey, how come you're not married? Who are you dating? When are you getting married?" And I was shameful. I was shamed to be like, I don't have anybody. But in my fantasy mind, I was like, oh, I wanted to say, yeah, well, I was married, but he died. Like, I don't know. Who knows where this shit comes from?
Comedy, right? It's funny.
It worked.
I would love to see like their face after you said something like that, especially as a young girl too. Just like, oh yeah, I did, but he's dead now.
Yeah, I mean, I never said that to them.
Yeah,
I never
yeah.
said it, but it was like this. It was, anyways.
You just wanted to be a widow. That's hilarious.
Coming from an Italian family, though, what was the reaction when you were like, "Hey, I want to be a comedian and a clown"?
They loved it. But it was like when I, when I stopped working in the real world, in this fake world, when I was like, well, I'm going to be an actor and a comedian now. That's when they had a hard time with it. But they laughed. Like my dad, when I was doing comedy, like when I started doing it, he's like, so you want to be a comedy? That's what he said. So you want to be a comedy? And that was the name of this show that I started, this monthly show that I referenced before. It was called So You Want to Be a Comedy? And then it was like, it got really popular. So yeah, I mean, so much of my comedy is so much, or a lot of it's been, my dad and the things he says.
Okay, yeah.
But they're like, they don't say anything about it anymore, but they would, oh, why don't you become a teacher? Because my sister is a teacher. And I was like, do you tell my sister to become a comedian? They love, like, my parents are so fun. Like, my mom's a joke teller. My dad is funny, and like, he does tell jokes, but he's more like, you don't know that he's like, he's so stoic sometimes, and he's such a character. So
I find old school Italians are really, really amazing storytellers.
Oh yeah.
So it just kind of naturally comes from that, just hearing their stories and everything like that. But
yeah,
I feel like they can't say anything now. You're a 2-time Canadian Comedy Award winner. You co-founded, what was it, CASC? Is that
CASC?
CASC.
CASC sounds like more like sexy. CASC.
Yeah,
I did. Yeah.
Well, what does it stand for?
The Canadian Association of Stand-Up Comedians. Now it's the Canadian Association of Stand-Up, Sketch, and Improv Comedians.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's because you guys are trying to get comedy recognized as an art.
Yep.
Which is crazy to me because after what you just explained, just now, it seems like there's so many levels to this.
So many levels.
And yeah, so I don't know. I got to understand why isn't it seen as an art already?
So
what's the reasoning?
There's all context. It's like, I was listening to the beginning of the Joe Rogan podcast where he's interviewing Rick Rubin. You know Rick Rubin?
Okay, yeah.
That was a good episode.
Yeah,
I listened to some of it, but like the highlights of it, I did hear some of it. It was
and
good.
Know how Rick was saying, like in the early days, like people didn't consider hip hop music.
Yeah.
And he's like, now, like people would be like this is what dawned on me while I was driving up here on Thursday, and I'm listening to this, and I was like, that's exactly comedy. Because when we started to lobby the government, when we come to Ottawa, and we'd sit with the Canada Council for the Arts, they were the worst ones. Like I liked everybody else, but these people, I don't like them. I know that's pretty bold, but
I know
like
that.
they were just
Haven't you won 2 awards from them?
What's that?
Haven't you won 2 awards from them? No, that's a different CCA.
The Canada Council for
sorry,
the Canada
CCA.
Council for the Arts is the funding body for
okay.
arts in Canada. But if you look, I totally nerded out in the time that I was doing when I was lobbying. I nerded out, and I really like looked into everything. I mean, these obscure books that were written, but in the 50s, like the Canada Council for the Arts came from what did they call it? Prime Minister's Louis Saint Laurent did like a oh shit, what did he call it? I said it the other day and I couldn't remember. He just did like a scan, I guess, like a study of like arts and culture in Canada. Okay. And out of that, it was like a royal commission, rather. That's what it was. It was a royal commission. And out of it came these recommendations. And one of them was like, the National Library of Canada and the Canada Council for the Arts. And, when you look back at the Royal Commission and you read, they're like, short storytellers can't make a living in Canada. They have to go elsewhere. They have to go to the United States because, they just don't get recognized here. Poets, all these kinds of people. So in the 1950s, what was stand-up comedy in Canada? So we weren't even at the table.
Yeah.
So then, this council starts to do its business. And then, then all of a sudden, we come along. I mean, I don't know if like the how it all happened was that I just decided in my innocence to write a letter to the Prime Minister, like an open letter, because I had just gotten so tired of hearing comedians complain about all the bullshit that we go through. And at the time, I think I wrote it in 2015, but I'd researched it for months because, my master's, I was like, I got to find everything out. And there was a big exodus of comedians to the States. And, I was like, I kept hearing how it's so easy for Americans to come here, but it's so hard for us to go there. We're not considered an art form, so there's no support on any level. And so then I wrote this piece, and then it went viral. And then it was recommended, people were like, hey, man, let's work on this. And met with some politicians, and they're like, you should form an association. Like, I never intended to lobby for comedians. That's insane.
It's now bigger than me now. Like, I was just trying to.
Yeah,
it's a little pissed off
yeah,
one day.
I just vented, man. And
I was just being Italian. You know what I mean? I'm like a fucking man. Like, now I got to work for these people. So
Just trying to get some free stuff or something,
So that was, and so our initial conversations with the Canada Council for the Arts were just like, these people didn't see stand-up as an art form.
Right.
They didn't see it. Because they at one point, I remember the very first conversation I had with them, they kind of were like, well, stand-up is like entertainment, like sports, and like a strip club, like strip tease. And I was like, what are you talking about? And even like the last trip we came on, which I don't remember when it was, they were like, well, if a comedian, let's say a stand-up, does a piece in front of, I don't know, like a projector, then maybe we would fund that. And I was like, but what is your problem with me, comedian standing in front of an audience with a microphone? How is that not art? That's what we want funded.
Why do we
That's
gotta
what we
find
need support
loopholes
from.
and stuff?
It's singing without the music and like the different pitches in it. You know what I mean?
It's poetry.
Exactly.
It's a
freedom of expression.
Exactly.
It upsets me too because I'm a huge fan of comedy and I get way more out of comedy shows and other things. Like we just went to an art show and some of this art that you look at, this person had tree branches hanging from a ceiling and that is seen as art and that's getting grant funding and that's getting all these eyes and this person could go and be like, oh, I'm an artist. And everyone's like, oh, fuck, it's amazing. Oh, you're a fucking artist. It's amazing.
I like this. Yeah.
Comedian goes out, says that what they do is art and everyone's like, yeah, shut up, do your dick jokes and like whatever. Like, leave
yeah,
me
and I
alone.
remember when I talked to this guy from the Canada Council for the Arts, I'm like, yo, I've been to a lot of shows that are funded by the Canada Council for the Arts, and that ain't art. And he's like, and he laughed really awkwardly.
You taped a banana to a canvas and sold it for $2 million. Like,
yeah, and like one of the things, I've written multiple pieces on like different parts of, people would ask me to write, and I was like, there's more money given to, adaptations of Shakespeare. That's not even Canadian.
Yeah.
It's not even Canadian art. Than there is to actual, like, to me, it was like stand-up is like, a real-time expression of Canadian identity that there is. Mm-hmm. Like there's nothing that matches it.
Yeah, and not everyone can just do that. Like no one can just go on stage and number one make strangers laugh. But some of these guys are like making really complex ideas simplified in a way where people walk away from that. Like every time I show my mom a comedian, she's like, you know what, he's telling the truth though. Like there's something there that he's saying. It's like the way they frame things in a way where people can be like, that's what I want to say, but when I say it comes out a little fucked up. But like he says it, that's what I mean. I just gotta play that clip for people.
Listen to this guy.
When I say it, I get kicked out of Denny's. Goddamn.
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah, no, it's interesting because there's like really talented comedians that I know here, and it's just annoying that what they do doesn't get seen as an art, and then we see other people like.
Yeah, it's crazy. And then, then you look at the larger picture of like Canadian entertainment, which is just so terrible.
Because you said it's easy for Americans.
I just got mad about it again like last week. Like, you know what I mean?
We're gonna get
like,
you riled up now.
I'm actually coming back to Ottawa in the summer. Like CASC invited me to come back to lobby again. Like, I mean, I stepped down in 2020, so I'm coming. They just invited me because now, you know, really we didn't, you know, over the last couple of years, right? Nothing was really going on. So now they're amping up the lobbying again. So they invited me, which is awesome. But like, you know, I'm just like, I'm not on the executive or anything, but you know, coming back to do that stuff because I've had the experience.
Side note, saying you've stepped down from something, how does that feel? That's pretty cool. You could say like you stepped down from the role.
Yeah, they didn't like
that
when I first announced
man.
it. When I first announced it, they were like, "What? You can't!" And I'm like, I can and I will because it was you can't do this work for too long. Yeah. Like it was 5 years of my life, and like it was making me sick. Like I literally mean it was making me sick.
They're like, "Who's gonna swear in meetings now?"
I mean, or be as bold as I was.
Exactly.
Like, I mean, you know, you start these things. Like I didn't start this because I, you know, like I said, I wanted to. Yeah. It was literally like it was your
calling.
It really was.
Yeah.
It really. I mean, I'm happy to like. Who knows where this next phase goes? But it's just like. I mean, you know, I'm at the stage too now for myself where I'm like, I got to amp it up for myself.
Yeah.
You know, these last couple of years really messed shit up. And like, you know, 2020, I stepped down December 2020. We're in the middle of the lockdown. And for the previous 5 years, I'd been lobbying for comedy. And it's what I did mostly that. And I was doing comedy. So it was like, I had, you know, almost since the beginning of starting to do comedy, I produced shows. I hosted shows, like really great shows in the city. Like I had one of my comedy partners, Phil Luzzi. I mean, we did shows together for 10, 15 years. And then I got to the point where I was like, I stopped, you know, for a bunch of reasons, but like it just got to the point. And then I started advocating and then the lockdowns and then here I am. I'm like, what am I doing? You know, and then coming back out of these lockdowns were very painful in some way. And now we're pretty much back. Right. Yeah.
That's crazy. So it took a back seat for a while, and then you're just kind of getting back into it now.
I mean, I never stopped performing, but like I never stopped. Like I was always doing comedy the whole time, but like really my focus now. I'm just like, okay, I got to take it to another level for myself. Yeah. To you know, really got to go out there now and like. You know,
you're not like sharing your responsibilities aren't being like allocated to different aspects, right? Yeah. You get to put 100% into one thing now as opposed to whatever percentages into them both.
Yeah. And that's it. So it's exciting because, you know, it's like, okay, well now I'm into doing something like taking it to another level, like really going, you know, trying to get out more. Like I don't want to leave. I'm not saying I want to live in Toronto forever either. It's not about that, but I just, you know, go other places because like, Canada is just like, I really see the vision I see for what's going to happen in Canada in the future. It's like, I see it very clearly. It's going to be amazing. And there's going to be a lot of money, you know, it's because we followed the example of music. Like I see it and it's happening, but
I got to do something now. I can't wait for the future.
You know, you got to take it to that next level for yourself, you know, and, whatever excuse I can keep making, like sometimes, and I do. I mean, it might be the Italian in me where I just like, fuck, I'm mad about how things work here, you know? And the entertainment business is so, like, really,
fucking
like
bullshit.
in a nutshell,
you just complain all the time, and
but it's like there's no place for Canadian entertainers there to see them, right? When you see them in the clubs or in theater too,
unless you follow them on social media.
You don't see them on TV. Yeah. They're not in our popular culture because America monopolized our popular culture. They stole it. You know, they really did. Now there's a bit of people letting them, but really it's like there is no other example in the world of like such a small country neighbor to an empire. And then all the bullshit between when it comes to culture between these two countries it's like it's a real crazy story.
What's an example of them stealing it? Like what would they?
Well, in the sense of like Canadian broadcasters buy mostly American content.
Oh, okay.
Okay, they don't create Canadian content, and when they do, a lot of it sucks. Now, most of what America makes sucks. Okay, like there's so much trash, but you know, like because it's just entertainment. The art that it makes is amazing, right? If you follow the art of America or other countries, but it's like we don't have that here because they just, you know, there were many times where Canada tried to assert its independence in the culture, like on the airwaves, and America's like, yo, what the fuck are you doing? There were times where literally officials, like American officials, were in Europe on business, and they found out, like there was at one point, I think during Pierre Trudeau's reign, that they were doing like a blackout along the border. So the TVs along the border between America and Canada, you couldn't get American content.
It's a satellite war.
Yeah. And then the guys came and they said to Canada, they're like, stop doing this right now. So there've been so many attempts like to try and assert this, to try and gain like, yo, we got to make our own content. Like we got to, and we have so many examples of amazing Canadian content. Also, they say like LA is like little Canada. It's like all our creators go there, move there. And like, I truly believe that like the Canadian comedy scene is like, it's like the best scene in the world. You can make that argument. And I believe like in maybe 5 or 10 years, like it'll make the best comedy the world's ever seen, because there is this, I don't know, whatever it is here, it's amazing. But at the same time, like this bullshit about like America and Canada, that there's this border. It's like it's one ecosystem, except they impose penalties on us for many reasons, because they do it to it's their foreign policy, right? America's like, no, you all have to do this bullshit when you want to come here. But Canada's foreign policy is open. That's why Americans can come here, no problem. But we have a free trade agreement with these motherfuckers. So it's like, sorry, we can't, like, let's try and do something more reciprocal.
Yeah.
So when you look at the music business in Canada, it's sort of the same story. In the 70s, Canadian musicians were being played on the radio and not getting paid. And then they started advocating. And now music is the biggest, has most money in Canada. And people around the world look at our industry like as an example of like how great it is. Because there's no mistake. It's not a coincidence that we've turned out megastars like Drake, like The Weeknd, like Timberlake, like Celine Dion. These are all recipients. These are people who've received grant money from Canada.
Yeah, Drake milked out grants up until very recently.
Yeah, I think he still gets them.
Yeah, like they utilize that stuff.
So because the economy that it brings to the country is massive.
Yeah.
So, and the great thing about Canadian music is like what they'll say is that, in America, American music, it's a lot of pop music, whereas Canada, there's like, because it's funded in that way, it's like needs based, and there's a needs based and a consumer based, or there's a different word. So like, for example, if there's a choir on the East Coast singing Acadian tunes, well, that's a needs based. That's needs based. So it's like, we want to keep this tradition alive. So that's why there's so much variety in Canadian music as well. And it's really quite beautiful. I mean, people will be like, oh, we should be more like America. There's only 2 countries in the world that don't have a state-funded arts, and that's Hollywood and Bollywood. But everywhere else around the world, there are these departments of heritage, or these departments that fund art, So it's like, yeah.
I kind of want to double down on what you said, because she said Canada's got one of the best comedy scenes, and some people might be watching this like, what the fuck are you talking about? But I saw an American comedian perform at Absolute Comedy, and I talked to him afterwards, and he was like, it was a Wednesday night, and he's like, oh, this is the spot to be around North America right now. He's like, this is the best comedy club in North America. And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, yeah, this on a Wednesday night, this place is way better in terms of the audience, in terms of the atmosphere, in terms of the content than the Comedy Store is tonight. I guarantee that. And he comes here, and all these Americans come here. He's like, Americans love coming to Canada to do comedy. But isn't it like Canadians like can't even go to the States to do comedy?
No.
Like if you get caught doing comedy in the States, you're kind of blacklisted.
Yeah,
like,
you are. Yeah. People. So to go and do comedy in the States, like you either need a green card. That's like the green card is like you can live there. I mean, you can live there anyways, but you have to be careful. But there's like the green card, the O1 or the P1. And the O1 and all these things cost, the O1 costs like upwards of $5,000. The green card can cost almost, $20,000 US by that time you get it going. Whereas when American comedians come here, they don't have to pay anything. Sometimes they pay $45. So if you just want to cross the border, you have to lie. Now, like it depends the border agent you get, okay? But that's insane. So when you're a comedy club touring age, when you're like, oh, I'm a comedian and I can do clubs. Imagine if we were able to tour the clubs like they do. Imagine if 10, 15 years ago, any one of us, right, and who were able to go through, well, then your profile would be so different.
Yeah.
Okay. So So these O1, like, so the P1 is a circus visa. I know, talk about hilarious, but the circus visa came from the Cirque du Soleil because, you know, it's this huge company. And so they created their own visa classification. And that's the next step for CASC or for Canadian comedians. And it's something that the Canadian government told us to do, which is you need like the equivalent of a Canadian association in America. So that becomes your sponsor. And then we create our own visa classification. So there's the American Federation of Musicians and there's the Canadian Federation of Musicians. And that's how musicians in Canada, they go back and forth. Now their visas are still expensive too. And the Department of Homeland Security just announced that they're going to be they might be doubling the price of those visas now again. So people are complaining. So for example, if a Canadian band goes to America, everybody in the band has to buy a visa. But when an American band comes here, the band only has to buy one visa for the band. Same when an American production films here. This is why they all come here. They have to buy one visa, and these visas are $400 or $500. And they can come and film a production here. So, do you see?
Yeah. It's interesting too because like
Fuck, man.
And there's so much more
That
too.
sucks.
because it's a
That
lot
sucks.
of work for. But like still like Canadians want to, despite all that, they still want to go to the States to break in there.
Well, of course, like, comedians tour. Like,
Yeah.
as old as as
Yeah.
long as there's been comedians, you tour. So why are we shut out? It's so difficult. I mean, this is post 9/11 because you talk to like actors or comedians. Like, people be like, what about Jim Carrey and Mike Myers? Yeah, they went to the States when it wasn't a problem. It was easy.
Yeah.
Right?
Just walk.
Yeah. And you could be like, yeah, I'm going to LA, and a year later you come back. Nobody would say anything to you.
Yeah.
Okay. So all the people that are in the States now, like, these are all my peers. Like, there's a huge exodus of them. And these people have had to put up so much money, sacrifice so much, they start over again.
That's the thing I hear a lot too is like you build up a career in Canada, let's say Toronto, you do your thing for like 10 years and you finally have like kind of perfected your craft. The second you go to move to like an LA or a New York, they say you're starting from scratch again. And
Now they quickly rise up because then once they
Right.
get
Yeah.
the scene, people are like, oh, you're good.
Right,
But it's
right.
still, you got to
Yeah.
go there. Nobody knows who the fuck you are.
Yeah.
And it shouldn't be that way because, again, this is one ecosystem,
Yeah.
And yeah.
So how do you feel like Canadians can break through right now? Like, well, what's the way to do it? Is there a formula? Is there a method?
You've identified the problem. Give us a solution.
Okay.
Point
Go
proof
to
comment.
Parliament Hill and set fire. No, I mean, social media for all of its stuff. I mean, it has a democratizing effect, right? There is an access now that didn't exist 5 years ago, and I don't know. I'm sure you guys see it too. You have your own show, but it's like since the last couple of years now, everything seems to be online, and comedians are now. It's like you have to post your clips. You got to do all that. So there's that. It's like, and I had an issue going there because I'd have these young comedians be like, you should post your stuff, like don't post your jokes, but like the way you riff, like just post those, and people like watching that stuff, right?
Yeah.
So
Good crowd work clips always get you going.
yeah,
Yeah.
so there's that, but on a artistic level, it's like more really, it's like keep telling the truth. The fame, like this is the other part where people is like, well, I want to go to the States because there's always this fame aspect of this, right? Which clouds and has poisoned the whole business. I mean, Hollywood is like, what is it? Den of Satan? You know what I mean? Like there's amazing stuff to it. It's like if we talk about the art is beautiful, but when the business part of it, it's like grotesque,
Yeah.
So I think like as an artist, as a human being, be human, keep going out there, keep telling your jokes, keep doing stuff. Yeah, go on, like, use the tools and fight for your right as a worker. Like when the conditions are not good, you fight for it. People, they're like, I met all sorts of people, like when I was advocating, people were like, yeah, I don't want to be associated with CASC. I don't want to like be seen to be rebellious or talk against my industry. And I did. And I certainly suffered the consequences of it. I still do. People might not want me around because, I said certain things, but it was
Like
the only
certain
thing.
clubs won't let you perform there, or like
Yeah.
Okay, I like
You
that.
know?
I like
Certain
that.
organizations probably are like,
Yeah, because they know I speak, but it's like I just couldn't not say it. And because here's the thing, like, all this time it's in a, like, this one piece that I wrote where it's like everybody, actors as well, like, we stayed silent because we didn't want to lose work, right? We were like, oh, we knew how messed up it was on every level. Everyone knew. But people were afraid to speak up because they were afraid to lose work. Well, then guess what? Then the industry literally disappeared. When Facebook and all these social media companies came into Canada in 2012, like during Stephen Harper's reign, it blindsided us, right? Because there were no rules or regulations. Canada hadn't updated its Telecommunications Act since the 70s. So these motherfuckers came in, all of a sudden money that would go to advertising dollars that would go to the broadcasters stopped and started going to social media. So then the broadcasters now are losing so much revenue. Okay. So then our industry literally started to disappear. And then that's the consequence of staying silent, right? Is, when our freedoms and our rights are taken away, when we don't, and we see it happen, but we want to stay silent because we think, oh, I just want to preserve myself. So they pick me. That's an illusion. That's a lie. Right. And we see, and so it doesn't matter whether you're a comedian or you're living in like places like Iran or wherever where people literally get put to death for that. Mm. Well, if you like, it's not like things like this can't happen in places like Canada. You don't know. Like I saw somebody say this recently where it's like, if you stay asleep during a democracy, you'll wake up in a tyranny and be like, what the hell happened?
I've heard that quote before. Yeah.
It's a beautiful quote, So it's like, as a worker, like other workers, you see them all the time protesting, standing outside of their businesses or their factories and being like, we need better conditions or whatever. Well, then why is it when it comes to comedians or actors, we don't do that?
Yeah, interesting.
Because even if you look at the States, right? The reason why they have the industry they do is because people fought for that shit.
Yeah.
Like there was a lot of abuse. I mean, there still is a lot of abuse, right? But that there are so much in place. It's like people fought for that stuff.
Yeah, I saw like there was a documentary about the Comedy Store, and there was like the comics had like a strike at one point. But why do you think other comedians just don't see it, or do they see it like and they just don't want to do anything about it? But it just doesn't.
Exactly. They just don't want to do anything about it.
So they do see it.
Or they're afraid.
Yeah.
I've said, because I get afraid too. I get afraid too. And people are like, in this life, you choose what you got to do, you know? But it is incumbent on us, like as human beings and as we're workers, we're working. Well, if you see something not right, especially if it's to yourself or to your peer, like, when it's so egregious, you're like, wait a minute, like, man, we got to stand up for each other. Because that's, and then you see it in the world that's like the world that we're living in right now, where, people are like, all sorts of things are happening, and we could stand by and watch it, or we could come together and take down, like, the people that are, or the forces that are doing this to us, like keeping us separate, making us believe there are differences between us. You know what I mean? Because really it's like, there is no difference. There's no separation, but they've manufactured separation, because, like everybody's in a group, and that's bullshit. Like we need to come together as humanity because it's the only way we're going to survive the next 100 years. I mean, and then there's the whole spiritual side of what's going on. It's like, we really see what's happening on the planet. Like, where do we want to go? Do we want to keep going down this path of, like, I don't know, like war and destruction and fake food and fake money, everything? Do we want to go down that path, or do we want to come back to the earth, which we need to survive, right? And to me, that's what the path I want to go. That's the path I'm on.
And it's like, how do you, like, especially like, I guess from like a comedic standpoint, like how do you keep it separated? Because there's the content and the art that you're trying to work on and perfect to be the best that you want to be. But then all this politics and business gets thrown in there, and you can't ignore it, because it's like, if I want to make success in this career, like I need to understand that side of things. So it's like, how do you just focus on what you got to do, get the job done, but also like manage that stuff, but not let it impact your art?
Meditate. and then be the clown and look at yourself from all 6 directions and laugh at yourself, because then it is all ridiculous. Like we could be like, oh my God, the world. But then we can all just sit and laugh and release ourselves and just, do that too. Because like when we take ourselves too seriously too, like that's what I saw too. Like when I was advocating, I was like, oh boy, like, you really can get consumed. And that happens with people who are activists, people who do this stuff. Like then you become so invested in your identity as that activist that you're just like, that's not good either. Like, so yeah, it's like, it's a combination of like, doing the work, but also don't take it too serious too. And keep it light as much as you can.
You gotta live outside your body and see
100%.
Us living in the sitcom that we are currently living in.
Yeah, and the matrix that we're living in, because it's like also what these last couple of years showed us too was that everyone was like, I was doing comedy every night of the week, and some comics are still doing that, but it was like that's all we were doing. Like everyone, whatever thing they were doing it all the time. Well, no, like there should be time for the earth, and there should be time for for walks and for engagement in the world, with people. And I think a lot of us saw that, even if there was like a lot of horrible stuff going on, but it's like, I mean, yeah, I'm a comedian, but it's not the only thing I do, it's, I'm a bunch of things. So don't take yourself too seriously. Like, I'm a comedian and I'm going to fucking grind and I'm going to show these motherfuckers and I'm going to get fame. Like, you know what I mean? It's kind of like a bit American style too, where it's like, yeah, man, I got like, these identities that we get attached to, these personas we create. If we get too attached to them, then people don't want to hear from you no more.
Yeah. It's like, I was watching this podcast clip of Jerry Seinfeld. I forget who he was arguing. It wasn't even like much of an argument, but they were like, oh, like the difference between a comedian and a comic. And they're like having a full out argument with, they're like, oh, I'm a comedian. No, I'm a comic. And it's like, no, you can't say it. It's like, dude, like you're fucking Jerry Seinfeld. Don't even say that, because he's like, oh, I prefer to call myself a comic over a comedian or whatever it was. And it's like, I don't know. He had like this whole definitions of why they're two separate things. I'm like, dude, if I were you and people asked me what I did for a living, I would just say I'm Jerry motherfucking Seinfeld, dude.
Yeah.
Like, that's what it should be to me, is like what you do is just like everything that comes with what you do, rather than trying to like pigeonhole yourself into like, oh, I'm a like comedian that also does sketch comedy and whatever. It's like, no, it's just you're who you are, and like everything that comes with that, whether that's like on social media, you do your clips, or on stage and everything. So
yeah,
everything in moderation. It's the best way to live. You know what I mean?
No, for real though.
Yeah, microdose everything. Microdose everything.
Nice, buddy. Very good. Because like, okay, so think
microdosing right now, man.
Oh, nice. I didn't know.
I've been just tripping for the past 10. That's why I haven't said anything, man.
Now I can see with the eyes. But it's like, if you
come down, I gotta drive home later. I gotta go to work tonight. Fuck.
What? So do I. But it's like, when you look at what a comedian is, who was the comedian? Was the storyteller? It's like, it's the person who came back from the hunt, who had the story to tell, and everyone gathered around the fire and they stood in the middle and they told the story. Yeah. So it's like all this like commercialization, all this shit that has come with it is a lot of it's poison. Like it's poison. The way that it comes through, the way it's broadcast. You know what I mean? Like a lot of that's poison. So it's like, you're the storyteller. That's it. Whether you write for TV, like, people will say too, like, TV's poison. Like, you don't watch your TV too much. And it's true. Don't be on your screen that much. But humans are storytellers. We sort of like, we survive the story. So, and we love the story, right? And it's a beautiful thing. It really is. But again, like, don't take it too serious. Like, tell the story, write the story, watch the story, but don't just watch the story all the time. Live the story, just fucking that's it.
There's
fucking the best story, man.
And dose it, microdose it.
To wrap it up on that note, though, I don't know if you've seen Andrew Santino's Netflix special, but he had a great analogy, just basically summing up what you just said.
Amazing.
Yeah, and he has this one joke where he tells the joke, and then some people in the audience get offended, and then he's like, listen, you made that character up in your head. I didn't even specify who these people were and stuff like that. And it was really just like, whoa, like fucking, yeah, if you were microdosing during that, it was hitting pretty hard. Like that was, it was a really, I don't even know how to explain. You just got to watch it. Like the premise is insane, but it's exactly what you just talked about.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, cool. I'm going to watch it.
Yeah, you should. It's good. No, I won't ruin it.
I want to. I'm not one of those people like, don't tell
me.
Me like neither. Some things where I'm just like, I'm in the next episode. I'm like, okay, take it easy, but I'm not. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh right. Sorry, lagged a little second. He equates it to like a cheeseburger. Like he's like, I just want you to enjoy me while you have me. You know what I mean? No one really like thinks about the legacy of the cheeseburger. You just crave it, you get it, and then it's good for a little bit. Right?
And then when the people listening to the joke, taking the joke the way they want to do it, he's like, you created that cheeseburger. Like you threw in your toppings, your sauce of how you want it to look, and it looks different than that guy's cheeseburger of how he took in my joke and stuff like that. So it's a really cool analogy.
And now with all this like social media, it's like people can go up and get mad and talk about what they saw, and it's like, what a waste of fucking time. Go fucking plant some seeds, bro. You know what I mean? Shut up.
Go plant some seeds.
You know
Touch some grass, man.
Seriously.
Touch some
Walk
grass.
in the woods, hug a tree. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like this stuff is so ugh,
Yeah,
you know?
fucking hang loose, man. Just fucking relax.
Catch a wave, the wave of life.
Yeah, man.
That's a great way to just
let's-
coast it out there.
Let's end it off there. Thank you so much
Oh
for
my
coming
God,
on.
Yeah,
this
thank
is so
you.
fun.
Thank you. I'm excited to catch you tonight. I've never seen you
okay,
perform before.
okay,
We'll
right.
see you tonight. I'll have my camera too. I'm practicing to film stuff for a future thing, so I'll have some clips of you too if you want them. Or if you're cool
Oh
with that.
yeah. Do you have a professional camera?
Yeah.
Oh, if you filmed the whole thing, I'll pay you for it.
Sweet. All right. I got groceries next week.
how
Let's
he's-
go.
What?
I got groceries next week.
Okay,
now.
yeah, like I filmed with my phone, but if there was a professional, for sure.
I'm there.
Okay,
Let's do it.
okay, you tell me what your fee is.
Cool. All right. Cut the cameras.
I mean, it depends. Like, what's your fee?